Welcome to our November board meeting. We're going to go ahead and get started with the pledge and the prayer. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you. Thank you for today. Thank you for the veterans that have served and are continuing to serve for this great country that we live in. Lord, continue to bless them, guide them, and watch over them in doing so, and keep our country free. Lord, also be with us as we continue to make decisions that are best for our community, our students, our school, our staff, and our parents. Lord, just be with us as you continue to guide us through those decision makings and making this the best place we can make it. In your name we pray. Amen.
Okay, first we have our approval of our agenda. Is there a motion and a second?
I make a motion. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next, we have our approval of our minutes from our regular session, October 14th meeting. Minutes, you all had those sent to you. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
Make a motion.
I'll second.
And was there any discussion or questions about anything in the minutes? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next, we have our public comments. Did anyone sign in to speak? Okay. Okay, thanks, Lily. All right, we will move on. And first tonight, we're going to do a presentation about a possible Veterans Memorial and display. Mr. Jeff Soldner is here with us, Colonel and retired commander at the 122nd Fighter Wing National Guard. So thank you for being here tonight, and we look forward to hearing your presentation.
Well, thank you. You just stole my introduction. How's that?
You can do it better. So
Oh, no. Here, let's see if we can get the technical stuff to work.
we could move.
And do I have to select HDMI 1 there?
Evan, can you help us out? Thanks, bud.
Well, sorry I made you guys move around. I am Jeff Soldner, and I want to thank the board for giving me the opportunity to present this. It's a proposal. It's nothing that you guys have to do. You'll have to discuss it, but I think you're going to find it a worthwhile proposal. Let's see. There we go. Okay, bottom line up front. I would like to establish a Veterans Memorial that will honor all AC alumni who have served in our military, okay? The standard feature or central feature will be a static display of a fighter-type aircraft on a pylon, okay? The purpose is to inspire remembrance, community pride, and most of all, I think, something that the whole community can wrap their arms around. Some of the other features will include separate memorials to each of the service branches and a central memorial that honors all the AC graduates who have served. All right, so what am I asking you guys to do? Both the Navy and the Air Force, as part of their national museums, handle the hardware flow and accept applications for static displays, okay? This, under the Air Force rules, would qualify as a civilian community static display, okay? And as an Adams Central Community School Corporation, that is one of the qualifying organizations, along with the City of Monroe, which could qualify as a municipality, and/or a supporting entity, a nonprofit LLC, such as a museum of some type, okay? Now, to that end, I've kind of put the cart in front of the horse, and I have established a separate business, a nonprofit, domestic nonprofit entity in the state of Indiana, doing business as as the AC Veterans Memorial and Static Display, Inc. Okay, that's somewhat important because that becomes a venue for the transfer of funds, both in revenue and in expenses. Okay, so it really doesn't affect your school corporation other than relieve you of that responsibility. Proposed location. There's several. I scouted around your facility, and I think this would be up for discussion. But to me, there's a obvious one right out in front of the flagpole, okay? It should have high visibility. They're looking for something that's not stuck in the back of a property or hidden by trees or something. It needs to be out in the open. That's what the Air Force Museum is looking for. They want easy access, obviously for older people or younger, okay? And the key to that is your parking that's next door to that. So you'd want to have parking that's close by. And obviously the walking should be facilitated by a walkway of some type going out to the memorial. All right, the application process for both the Navy and the Air Force goes through their national museums. The Navy through their Naval History and Heritage Command, and for the Air Force, basically through their National Museum, which is located down at Wright Pat, okay? We're going to work closely with your superintendent, who is appropriate office to submit this application as a sponsoring organization. And there's some things that you need to know about doing that. I've had experience doing that in my former role as a commander when we set up our Heritage Park out front. So I'm familiar with the application process and how to kind of get your name in front of maybe some others. How's that? So I think we got a good chance of getting this done. The AC Veterans Memorial and Static Display, Inc. will become the responsible party, shall we say, when this application goes in. I'm going to submit both that entity and the school corporation on the application so that they understand that, seeing that it's a school corporation wanting to sponsor this, that no public funds will be attached, okay? So the idea is to get that application in just as soon as we can and get that approval back, because then we can start fundraising, and everything's going to revolve around being able to get the funds that we need to do that. The construction process, I think this is where we can start having some fun with the kids. The design of the memorial, I think if you guys have an engineering graphics department or someone like that, wouldn't that be great? Excuse me, to get their input and also maybe see some different designs that we wouldn't have normally considered. But at the end of the day, I think we can solicit input from a lot of different avenues for this. The design of the static display, we're fortunate, excuse me, in that we have some local expertise in that. Pre-stressed Services of Decatur. If you saw that F4 on a stick in that previous slide, well, they designed that base and pylon and actually built it out at our Heritage Park. And if memory serves me right, I think we still have an alumni connection with Pre-Stressed Services. So they will surely come in handy with either the design and or materials needed for this pylon. Site preparation can proceed typically once we do have sufficient funds to get the memorial and the pylon built, okay? And that's key, that you want to get that going as soon as possible, because as soon as we get it built, and we'll probably build the memorial after we put in the display base, we can have a dedication and we can start using that. okay? But we may not have a jet to put on the stick yet. As soon as we get that memorial built, we'll be able to reattack with the National Museum for the Air Force, put our sales hats on, and go there and make a presentation, letting them know that, hey, we're ready to go. We got all the money collected for putting that aircraft you're going to give us on a stick, and where is it, okay? I will tell you, this has been done. I've watched it being done a number of different times. And the Air Force Museum loves when a public entity such as yourselves, particularly with a team name like the Flying Jets, oh man, they eat that up. They want to see it from their standpoint. Well, this is a recruiting thing. This is from their standpoint, they're seeing their jet displayed in the right context. Okay, but we just want a memorial, right? We just want an airplane that we can all take a little pride in. So at that point, you're waiting on the aircraft delivery. So bottom line, how much is this going to cost? Funding source, well, it's going to be 100% private donations, okay? There should not be any public funds expended for this. To that end, that domestic nonprofit corporation that I just started will apply for a 501c3 designation. This would allow people to give charitable donations. Now that's not an automatic. I got to work with an accountant to get that done. But if we can, I think it will really facilitate our fundraising. The budget development consists of a construction budget and a maintenance fund. Now, one of the big ticket items on a construction budget that a lot of people aren't aware of is the cost of transporting the jet from wherever it is to wherever you want it to be. This usually involves tearing the wings off, taking the horizontal stabilizers off, and then putting the fuselage on a truck and the wings beside it. Shipping it overland and then having it reassembled at your site. Okay, this takes a lot of expertise and special equipment. So do we have that? No. We have access to it, kind of, sort of, but what you really want are some pros that do this on a normal basis. Worldwide Aircraft is where I got their figures on what it would probably cost to ship an airplane from, say, Arizona, the Boneyard, to Indiana. And it's around 55 to 60 grand. So that's one of the big ticket items, you know. Fly. Unfortunately, these things don't have engines. But anyway, that's a big ticket item. When you get the jet here, you need to paint it. Okay, you're going to stick it on top of a pylon for about 10 to 15 years before it starts looking real bad, and you need to repaint it again. So you want to put a new paint job on it. Should be done professionally, and that usually runs between 10 and 15 grand. Okay. The plaza and the memorials, I may be a little bit low on this, but I'm budgeting about 25 to 30 grand for that. And I think we can get a lot of material and labor possibly donated for that. That'll be the plan, but worst case, we'll have to pay for it. The maintenance fund, that's similar to the painting amount. You're going to have to paint this in 10 to 15 years. You guys don't want to be stuck with it. There needs to be a maintenance fund that lives on a line item of your budget that's designated for the AC Veterans Memorial and Static Display. And that needs to be an amount that's sufficient to cover that maintenance that has to be done in 10 to 15 years, and or any other type of items that may come up with relation to that static display. Something can always happen, and at that point we could still have our fundraising kick in again and figure out ways to pay for things. But at the end of the day, no public funds will be expended on this project. We're looking for basically corporate donations, either monetary, labor, or materials. I may do a GoFundMe campaign, but part of me wants to stiff arm that if we're doing well on other things. We'll try to do community outreach and press releases to bring this project to the forefront of the local community. And one of the big things is, I think we got somewhere around 4,000 to 5,000 living alumni out there. And if we can locate a good majority of them, I think we'll get I think we can do very well with our fundraising just through alumni alone. We'll have a website. That website will be attached to the AC static or Veterans Memorial and static display. However, we possibly on your AC website can at least announce the fact that this is an ongoing project. I'm not sure of the legalities or anything like that, but I see nothing wrong with you just mentioning that this is a project that you're sponsoring, okay? Spoke with Dave Solner, he's a SureTel relation of mine, and he was involved, I know, with your ballpark development out here. And he's got a wealth of information on how to raise and solicit funds from the local community. He also had some good ideas on how to do donor recognition, either through bricks or plaques. And we certainly want to do that also. I think it lets everybody have a piece of the pie, shall we say. Even if they didn't serve, maybe they contribute. And that's what we're looking for. Marketing and community benefits, what's in it for you? I think that this does a tremendous deal for improving the aircraft, the flying jet's branding, okay? What's better than a regular airplane out on a stick in front of your high school? Everybody that's coming to play you guys is gonna see it. People going up and down 124 are gonna do a double take. I know, I'll show you a double take I did on a couple other static displays that I saw on this next slide. But I think the big thing there is instilling community pride. And, well, I just think it's something that the whole community will wrap their arms around if we present it right and we allow everybody to be a part of it. Then again, it's a lasting tribute to the veterans. You know, this is a small community. Most communities do have some type of veterans memorial, and we don't. And so if we're going to do it, let's do it right. The last slide. Who are these guys? All right. This first picture that you see are the Union Local High School. It's located about 60 miles east of Columbus, and it's just right along Highway 70. Those folks were awarded a former Thunderbird maintenance bird that they're going to get, I think, sometime next spring. And they did it by raising all their money first, getting their pylon built, and they were the ones that came up with the idea of going back to the Air Force Museum and saying, hey, where's our jet? We're ready for it, okay? We're going to do the same. The jet to the right of that is from Highland Home High School, Alabama. A little community high school. Me and my wife were tooling back from Florida on 331 just south of Montgomery, and there that thing sat. I mean, how in the world did they get that done? Well, they did. And I'm sure it took an organization or a committee or someone that had a little bit of knowledge and the wherewithal to go to the Air Force Museum and get one of those things for their school. So it's not undoable. I want to stress this is a very achievable project. I wouldn't be standing in front of you if I didn't think so. So I'm asking for your help to join us, support us in any way that you can. Please give this proposal your full consideration. I think it'll be a fitting tribute to all the AC veterans, okay? And with that, I will go to our questions. Well,
I think you did a very thorough job. I don't know.
okay.
It was very nice.
All right. Well, I thank you for your time. Yes.
I do have a question. You said it's our responsibility to paint it. Is there any certain way we have, I mean, if we put some red and white on it, would we be in trouble since that's our school colors, or?
This is a great question. Okay, there's a little bit of leeway with this. In my idea, what we do is back where you normally have the base assignment, which is big block letters on the tail. Well, that becomes AC. You know, we're paying for the paint job. We can put that on there.
Okay, well, that's what I
And
was curious.
there's some other leeway that you can do with that. So, I don't think you want to paint it in the Thunderbird scheme. You know, you just got to repaint it 15 years down the road. That's expensive. So,
And as far as size, is that like the ones comparable by the Fort Wayne Airport, like the
Yes.
big, like that?
Yes,
Okay.
that's just about exactly the
Okay.
same size. So, yeah, I would hope to get an F-16 and if they got wing tanks on it, we'll drop them because I like that clean version right there. Any other questions? All right, thank you for your time.
Jeff, can I ask a question? I apologize. Can I
Oh,
ask
sure.
a quick question, and I maybe direct here to Mr. Lehman as well? So clearly understand your proposal. Wise superintendent once told me you gotta be a little careful of your superintendent when you start speaking out loud publicly. But I see something like this and it would make me very excited. Both I'm speaking and just watching facial expressions up front. I think you're gonna probably hear some similar sentiment maybe from the board. So, but you made your presentation here very clearly. What do you need us to do and kind of on a timeline as far as offering our support, offering our commitment? What would you like, if we're going to do something like this and commit to being a sponsoring organization, when would you like to see this done? I'm assuming, Mr. Lehman, we're going to need to take some sort of a vote of approval from the board at some point.
Yep.
But when would your goal, Mr. Solder, be that we would have this done by, assuming this is something we...
I would hope we could begin actively putting in an application by the start of the year. And the process would probably involve at least a month's time. Usually you don't hear back from the Air Force Museum for 1 to 2 months, but I plan on following up with those folks. And I know some of those folks in that office. So we'll try to hurry that along if possible. There's really not too many reasons I can think of why the application would be denied, okay? You meet all the criteria. So I think the sooner we can get that okay back, well, we go to the end of the line in terms of waiting on a jet, but we can start our fundraising, we can start all the other processes that we need to get done to get this memorial built and ready for a jet when one becomes available. So I would ask that you try to maybe, I will supply you with the application itself and also the regulation, potentially for maybe your legal people to take a quick look at so that you don't have a bad, or you have a warm fuzzy is what I meant to say about what's required of a sponsoring organization, okay? The biggest piece really is you're giving us a lamp to put the display on, okay? You're not really giving it, you're just allowing us to put the display there, so.
As far as the maintenance, you said like 15 years from now it needs repainted, whatever. The money's not there, we can do a fundraiser or get the money. Who then is responsible for like
Coordinating? Well, I think that's where your committee, that's associated with the AC Veterans Memorial and Static Display would come through. That would be their responsibility to maintain it, as would be pointed out in the original application. So, and it's important that we hopefully have the money already collected for that, that just sits in a budget item and could be there as something to use for any unexpected expenses, but hopefully when we need it to repaint, make that thing look good again. Okay.
So really what we would be looking at doing in December is probably making a formal recommendation that we would be the sponsoring organization and take the vote on that. Am I thinking correctly?
Yeah, and I, just on the
Yeah.
legal side of everything, I'm thinking we need to, and I'll have to work with Audra, what does it mean to allow this organization to have this on school property?
Correct.
What, do we need to have some papers signed or whatever? The other thing is you mentioned about this fund, I think you said would set in the school account to pay for that. And I don't see that as a problem. We would certainly want to talk to the State Board of Accounts to make sure exactly how we need to set that up.
And I will tell you, I got that idea straight from the union local people who said that when they set up their maintenance fund, they talked with the school board, they allowed them to do it that way. So that'll be up to you folks.
Yeah, we'll have to find out what Indiana requirements are to do that as
Right.
opposed to where they are. But I don't foresee it as a problem. We just need to make sure we get that set up properly.
Okay.
But yeah, few pieces to look into, but I think we can certainly bring it back at the December meeting to
I may have one more question as well quickly. So I'm assuming once we do build that memorial and it does sit on this, on our property, I'm assuming that insurance things become our responsibility at the school system, correct?
For maintenance, as far as the, okay, let's say like snow removal or something like that.
I'm just thinking from a standpoint of, from an insurance piece, if somebody's out there and climbs up on top of the jet and falls down and breaks their arm.
That's a good point. You know, what's happened is a lot of times municipalities stick them in a park and they just set them down on the ground, on their gear. And that becomes an attractant to kids, and there's all kinds of potential for liability there. The whole idea of sticking it up on the stick is to keep it away from easy access. And at the same time, any vandalism, quite honestly, that can sometimes happen to them. But the insurance question should be asked, okay? Anyone else? Thank you again.
Thank you. Let me get my kids out of here first. Before we put this thing up. I can see everybody writing that thing on TikTok.
All right, we are going to move into, next is our consent agenda. We're going to begin that. I know of one removal under resignations. Jeremy, E2 needs to be removed from that. Other than that, we'll come back to that. And if I forget, you can let me know. But we're going to go ahead and start with our payment vouchers and fund reports.
And I would comment to that, Heather. Dawn had a situation with her family, and she actually left earlier in the weekend, and will probably be out the rest of this week because of that. And I assured her she was not to be sitting where she is doing financial paperwork, and we will address that in December.
All right, then item B is our disposals, and you all received that email that we had from Todd about having some excess parts and materials for some outdated systems that we no longer need. So he is asking us to dispose of those items. Textbook recommendation, this is for our dual credit public speaking handbook. This is what Ivy Tech directs that we use for this, so it's what we use so that our students get credit for that class, but that information was also given to you. Next is our overnight and out-of-state trips. Our only one is our FFA state contest for the crops, entomology, and forestry. We have 21 students going to the Boone County Fairgrounds in Lebanon, December 12th and 13th. Any questions so far or anything anyone needs clarification on? Okay, we're going to move on to our resignations. Our first one is Mrs. Jennifer Harshman as kitchen manager. And then we have Mr. Sam Beer, varsity assistant basketball coach, and we'll see his name reappear down here under recommendations. He's just doing a little move around. And then we have Ms. Aubrey Pulver, elementary paraprofessional. Next we have on recommendations for hiring, we have Ms. Lily Hurst, a custodial position that is part-time. Mrs. Haley Sowers, an assistant athletic director for half-time position in our winter session. And then we have Mr. Sam Beer again for volunteer assistant girls basketball coach. And Mr. Marcus Bullenbacher for middle school volunteer basketball coach. All right, that was a lot. So is there a motion to accept that consent part of our agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? Anything else we need to discuss on that or questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. And then let's circle back to resignation for Mrs. Jeremy Sorgen for 8th grade volleyball volunteer coach. Is there a motion to accept the resignation?
I'll make that motion.
No, you're stuck here.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you to those people who are.
Abstain.
Oh,
How did I forget that? After? I apologize, sorry. Remembered everything else, but okay. Thank you to those who, those resignations, for the time they've given to Adams Central. We appreciate that, and welcome to some of our people in those new positions. Some are people who have been here, but we welcome the other new ones. All right, next we have our coaches roster for 25-26, and this is our winter coaches roster, adding those 3 updated positions there that we had for hiring. Or, I'm sorry, I think there were 2. Is there a motion to accept the 25-26 winters coaches roster? I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion or questions about that?
I think just the reason you had 3 is because from basketball from last week, we didn't reapprove.
Yes,
So
you're
that's-
right.
Yep.
From our special session.
Yep.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I will abstain.
Abstain? Okay, you're on there. Sorry, Ben, I didn't realize that.
All good.
For the wrestling. Doug's on there as well? Are you on there as volunteer coach?
I don't think so.
Missed it? Is he on there?
We never let you go, Doug.
You probably should resign.
Oh, yeah, you are. Yeah.
Okay.
I just-
I'll abstain too.
If you have
They
to.
volunteered me without asking me. I'll tell you that.
Guess your winter's living a little busy.
Voluntold.
There, buddy.
Thanks, ladies. Sorry about that. I didn't realize, I didn't see his name there. All right. Next, we have the creation of a new position in the ECA area, and that is a middle school assistant swimming coach position. And Mr. Lehman, did you want to say anything about that?
Yeah,
for us?
I would. We really haven't had a process for what happens if we want to add a position. And that's come up a couple times in my short tenure here. So we set up a system where someone could say, we would like to have this new position. And this is actually our first one that followed that. Mrs. Ish has signed off on that. I absolutely agree too. We've had good numbers in that program, and we certainly appreciate the new pool. But we also know that when you have that many kids, another set of eyes is a really good thing around water. So we think it's both good for the sport, but also good for safety on that. But to create this, it's kind of an interesting process because the board has to approve the position. But after tonight, the position will not have any pay with it, because all of those things are negotiated. So once the board approves a position, then I can sit down with the people who work with me from the teachers group, and we collectively decide what that amount would be if we can come up with something, and then that comes back to the board for approval. So it's a bit of a process. Welcome to education. Those of you that you going, what, really? Yeah, we got to do all that stuff. So yes, tonight we're just creating that position, no name attached to it or anything, but the board has to say, yes, we're okay with that position.
Thank you. All right, is there a motion to approve the new middle school assistant swimming coach position?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion or further questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, next we're going to move on to our approval of resolutions. As our next agenda item, we have to hold an additional appropriation hearing on the proposed bond proceeds. There will be an opportunity for the public to make comments about the additional appropriation of the bond proceeds. The notice of this additional appropriation hearing was published as legally required. We are now going to open the public hearing and ask that you state your name and address, limit your comments to the proposed additional appropriation of bond proceeds, and keep any comments to 3 minutes, and avoid being repetitive if possible. Is anyone interested in speaking? Okay. No participation, so we're going to go ahead and close the hearing, and we're going to reopen our regular meeting. And this next section, the 4 items that we are approving will be done separately. I know that you had them emailed to you to be able to take a look at and read. The first one is the agreement for services. So that was our longer document that we had. Could I have a motion and a second to adopt the agreement for services?
I'll make the motion.
One second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to our next Exhibit A, that is our additional appropriation resolution that we have. That was the one-page item sent to you. Could I have a motion and a second to adopt the additional appropriation resolution?
Make a motion.
Any discussion or questions about that document? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, next is the final bond resolution document, and that was Exhibit B in our packet. Could I have a motion and a second to adopt the final bond resolution?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, our last item was the certificate of authentication. And again, this is with Old National Wealth Management. They are the paying agent. And do we have a motion and a second to adopt the certificate of authentication?
I'll make the motion. I'll second.
Any discussion or questions about that certificate? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Heather, before we move on, for those of you sitting here and for those of you watching, we've been talking for several months about this GEO bond, $695,000, and had all those hearings where people could come and talk about that. And this seemed like this was, if you've ever signed a mortgage for your home, did you ever get tired of signing your name? Well, it's really no different with schools. And after this, the board president and the secretary have to sign all this. But these were all the legal documents that, quite frankly, they are not prepared by us. We hire professional people to do all of these documents, and that's what we've done here tonight. We've given our president and secretary the authority to sign those documents to move forward, so that those of us in education understand, but a lot of people don't understand all those steps, and it's a bit confusing. I understand that.
A lot of hoops to jump through to get that accomplished. All right, we're going to move on to our approval of our master agreement, which is our teacher contract. I know that you've all had a chance to look at that. That had been emailed out to you and been done for a bit here. And we had our hearing on that as well. Is there a motion to approve the master agreement?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, is there any discussion or questions about anything that's in that document? Or Mr. Lehman, did you have anything that you wanted to say on that?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
I want to thank the teachers group and for those on the board that helped. We met multiple mornings, talked about things. We've talked a lot about the difficult financial situation coming forward because of the changes the state's made. But I want to tell you, I guess for someone who's worked in a lot of different places, it was a good situation, and that's not always the case. But people had things that they wanted, but we were able to just talk about them, work with them, and special thank you to Kevin and Amanda as the leaders of the teachers. It's actually been a positive experience where in many cases sometimes it can be very controversial. So thank you to them and to the board.
All right. All in favor of approving the master agreement?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next, we're going to move on to our policies. We have several of those. First, we're going to forego reading the policies aloud, the ones for their first reading that we have. There's 20 of them, so we're not going to read out every paragraph of those. So we need a motion to approve that, to forego that reading.
I'll make that motion. I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Mr. Lehman, would you like to take us through these?
No?
Will you please take us through these?
I will do that. And the board has had these for quite some time. We've been trying to bring some of these in line because of some changes. And if you've watched any of the meetings, you know that a lot of these are simply because the legislature made a change or the federal government made a change, and we need to make sure our policies are in line with that. And for those of you that maybe are new to this, we actually work with a company of attorneys who send us twice a year updates. We don't sit around and try to read all the news and figure out what those are and then ask Audra to write legal language for them. This company, this is what they do. And so that's very helpful. So, moving right along, 3120.02 is the first one on the list. And one of the things they created a couple years ago, and Adams Central is actually using, is a position called an adjunct teacher. And an adjunct teacher has to have 4 years of experience in the content that they're going to come and teach. They don't have to have a teaching license, but they have to have experience in the content. But they're not done with their certification yet. You can now bring them in before they finish their teaching license to fill a position that you need filled. And as I mentioned, Adams Central has already been doing this for a while. We just now bring the policy up to agree with what we're already doing by state law. So that's the first one. At any time there's any questions, you just need to holler out. I know you've seen these for a couple months now. We're a little behind because last month we had to hire a superintendent, so we didn't get to go through all these. Next on the list is 4120, and I won't spend much time on this one because last month we did 3120, and all that said was staff can actually have personal relationships with each other unless you're the supervisor of that person. Then you can't, which I think makes sense to most people. And this one has to do with support staff. We did one for the superintendent several months ago. We've done one for the teachers, and now this is for the support staff. It's all the same. It makes so that supervisors can't have a relationship with someone that works for them. 5310. There are times that they give you one that's called a technical correction. They just clean up some language and we can just go on. They didn't make this a technical correction, but I just want to tell you they changed board to school board, and they changed non-emergency with a space to non-emergency without a space, and they changed is with a semicolon to is with a colon. I'll just move on to the next one. 5410. This again is state law as far as third graders testing, and it can no longer be considered for retention. It states retained. Now there are still good cause exemptions that we can look at, but they basically took that away from us and just said if they don't meet a good cause exemption for not passing the test, they need to stay in the third grade. And again, that's Indiana code, not Adams Central. 5460. We've heard a lot about the new graduation requirements from our high school staff. This is just updating the school policy to match all those new diplomas and all that that the state has put in place. 5540, this is an interesting one. 5540 is already a current policy. And what it does is it explains how we as a school work with the police, how we work with child services, how we work with government agencies. That's all in 5540. Somebody thought they ought to be separate. So now we have 5540, 5540.01, and 5540.02. Okay. But the language is all the same. Moving along. 6111. I know I kind of tongue-in-cheek on some of these things, but they're really quite hilarious. 6111 now says, if the auditors say your books are in such bad shape they can't be audited, you have 90 days to fix them. I'm thinking they ought to be addressed immediately, not within 90 days. But so you heard that. Dawn's probably glad she's not here tonight. Adams Central's books are not in that situation. 6116. This is another very interesting one. They've added that the school board has to approve the cost of what employees get paid. So I think that's what we already do, and I don't know who was not doing it, but now there is a policy that says this board has to approve pay. 7300 has to do with getting rid of property, and this has to do with, you've probably heard where schools that are closing a facility, if there's a charter school in their area, they have to offer it to the charter school. That'll not, we don't have any in our area, but that has to be part of our school policy. Regardless of what you think about that offering. 7430 now says that if you have a preschool, and we do, you have to test your water for lead, and we do. So we're already doing it. It's now in policy. 7440.01. What this policy now says, we do electronic monitoring. In case you didn't know, we have cameras, we have sensors, we have all of that. This policy says that should never take a backseat to personal observation by your administrators and by your staff, which makes sense. We need to be diligent, and this staff is very diligent in that. 7455 has to do with our accounting system and our capital assets, and it's just, we're not going through them. It's Indiana code changed and says that Dawn has to do these things, okay? So that's basically what that policy says. 8120, we've always had a policy that talked about volunteers. Again, they rearranged that. There's volunteers, and then as you heard tonight, we have some people who are volunteer coaches. They made those two separate parts of the policy. So they have the policy now talks about volunteers who may come into classrooms and things like that, and then they have separated out volunteer coaches. Okay. 8121. This just talks about, we do background checks. Rest assured, we do background checks. And for our teaching staff, we do extended background checks, which look in great depth on these people. This policy talks about what happens if something comes back on that background check. And the way it's been, it just talks about how the superintendent needs to look at those. And you need to ask yourself the question, so what's on that record? Does that impact working with kids? And was it last year or was it 15 years ago? Have they had a history of something every 3 years? So they're not saying if something comes back, you can't hire them. They're saying if something comes back, you need to evaluate that. And does it preclude them from working with students? 8330 is student records and everything we need to keep in student records. And now it says you have to keep immunization records in the student records. Okay, we've actually been doing that. 8405, again, says you have to test your water for lead. We're doing that. 8510, they actually took out a bunch of the wording. It's about wellness, and it's a long policy. They took a bunch of the wording out. That was nice. And the one thing they added was you can't discriminate against your students. Okay, we won't do that. We don't do that. 9150, school visitors. The school visitors piece had to be broken up a little bit because remember I talked about how the school works with police, how the school works with DCS. Well, if we have visitors in and there's difficulties, this had to be changed to match up with the new 5540, 5540.01, 5540.02. And 9160, public attendance at school events. They too have caught up with today's electronics. It now adds live streaming for those events and what that looks like. And the main thing is you can't violate copyright laws and that sort of thing. So but it has brought live streaming into something that it was always about pictures and recordings. Well, that's old school. Now it's all live streaming. With that, my voice that wasn't very good to start with is now really bad. So questions? I don't think there's too much controversy in this current batch.
Mr. Lehman, we did not have 8121 on our 20 policy list there. I know we just now discussed it, but it wasn't listed on the agenda. I don't know if
That's probably my fault.
I don't know if we can, add that in as we did the first reading to that one tonight.
We can agree to add it as a first reading tonight because we're not taking any, that's the other part of this.
Yeah.
If you've not been familiar with this, there's no action taken tonight. We have to present all of this and then give people a month to pick up the phone and call us that they would like to do something different. That would happen in December. So yes, it is very much allowed to add as a first reading.
Okay.
If it was a second reading, no, but as a first reading, yes.
All right, so 8121 has been added in. I know it was on the list you emailed us because I had looked at it, but I didn't realize it wasn't on that first reading list. So, all right, any questions or concerns or comments on that section, on that whole section of policies that we want to clarify anything for the first reading? Okay, then we will move on to the second reading of and vote upon policy 2340, the field and other corporation-sponsored field trips. We talked about this one at our last meeting. And 3120, which is the employment of professional staff that was mentioned earlier tonight because it's very similar to 4120, which is employment of support staff.
And I would share that I've not had no follow-up questions from board members or requests for any changes from the first reading.
Okay. If we have no further questions on that or those first reading ones, we'll go ahead with the second, 2340 and 3120. Is there a motion to approve those two policies?
I'll make the motion to approve those two policies.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. We're going to go ahead and move on to our administrator reports section of our meeting, and we'll start with Mrs. McCullough.
Thank you. Matt, thank you.
on up.
Front and center.
I just have two quick things. The first one is I want to thank our kindergarten team. We met last week for a full day, really looking at that differentiated core. We got into some of the details of things and what that's going to look like, how we'll organize students, how we'll communicate with parents, share data, all of those details. So our next step is we have a literacy, she's a literacy consultant throughout the state that we have reached out to, and we're going to have a virtual meeting with her to get into some of the details on best practice for the next step of that. So that's been very exciting work. The next thing was just we've got some iLearn data now, and so we're doing some data discussions to try and get into a mode of continuous improvement in our instructional practices. So that's going on. And then the best thing I have to share, if I can always share something about kids, is I would like to compliment our teachers on developing our students in persuasive writing. With the first cold day of school happening today, we had indoor recess, and I have a letter here with a petition from 67 children that would like to have gym in the or recess in the gym when possible. So, you know, when our students take it to a new level of real application, I love it. So it made my day, so I'm going to have to do my work to see what's available. And they have great suggestions. We might need to rotate among the grades and do things. So they're really thinking through. So kudos to our students and to our teachers for working hard on persuasion. So there's that.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Ish with our middle school and high school.
Okay, well, I will start out with 3 things for this coming Friday. So first of all, the iLearn Checkpoint 1, so there are 3 checkpoints. The window closes on Friday. So all of iLearn Checkpoint 1 will be done by Friday. If you're a parent, just so that you're aware of that. We also are going to host some CTE tours for North Adams this coming Friday to showcase our CTE programs. We're going to host South Adams. And then we are also going to North Adams and South Adams. So the next 3 Fridays we'll be doing the CTE rotations. We want to thank the Adams County Community Foundation for helping to facilitate and sponsor this activity, just to give our students an opportunity to see what they could do at other schools. And then finally this Friday we're having a fall celebration. We will all be able to be in the hangar together, K-12, just to celebrate all the exciting things that have happened so far this fall. So those are exciting things coming up on Friday. Looking into Monday, we will have our Veterans Day program on next Monday, November 17th. And as hard as it is to believe, it is our midterm for quarter 2. So we'll be halfway through that quarter 2 point already. And then just looking forward a little bit more big picture, the things that we're working on in the high school, middle school, just 2 that I'm going to highlight. One of them is the new IDOE accountability model is being discussed quite a bit. It will come into play this year. And so we are looking at that, and I've got a team working with me looking at that as well. And believe it or not, we are talking about our scheduling process for 26-27. So the guidance team is already hard at work getting ready for that, so that we're prepared to get into classrooms right when we get back from Christmas break.
I just have one question. Can you tell me what time the Veterans Day program is? I have someone to ask.
Yep, so 1:30.
1:30. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Lehman, it's your turn.
I just have one thing tonight, and it's a great segue from Mrs. Ish. And I'm not going to say a lot because, just so you know, we're already getting our money's worth out of Mr. McClure. He's been hired, and I said, good, you're in charge of the school calendar for 26-27. And he has worked hard. He's talked to the other schools. He's been working on that. So tonight, and I sent this to you, this is not an approval tonight. This is kind of what we're looking at for the calendar. So if Mr. McClure would like to hit the high points, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I would just highlight one of the things that he has mentioned. I've been back and forth a little bit with superintendents of North Adams and South Adams, just to try to start maybe doing a little bit better job coordinating anything first day of school, last day of school, some of our PD flex waiver days when we're having those. because obviously, just as Mrs. Isher just talked about some of our CTE programs, if Adams Central is off and North Adams has school or vice versa, just for those kids, and that's more of a high school issue than probably elementary and middle school, but it's just pretty convenient when the schools are operating somewhat similar calendars. So both North and South Adams are still working through a little bit of their process to finalize those, but I have worked with them. One of the things I would highlight is just next year's calendar, where you look at where some of the dates fall as far as Christmas and New Year's. Where does Easter fall? Easter next year actually is going to fall about as early as it possibly can. I think it's March 28th in 27, which means, for example, Good Friday actually will occur on the Friday of spring break, so sort of saves us a day on that. I think if you look at the calendar, it's pretty much identical to this year as far as 2 weeks at Christmas without the kind of split weeks, the week at fall break, spring break, Friday before spring break. So no real major changes on that for next year. The only thing I would comment on is that as we look at those flex day, professional development days, over the course of the next month, I'm going to kind of just work a little bit again with the other superintendents to kind of, as much as we can, at least on some of those days, get those coordinated. So we might have a little tweak on that. I don't think there will be any tweak on the first day of school. That last week of school, if you notice, Memorial Day is pretty late next year as well. It's on May 31st. So tentatively, we would be done the previous Tuesday with students, which I think is the 25th, if I remember that right off the top of my head. We'd have our staff day on Wednesday. Graduation would be the following Sunday, June 6th, a week and a half later. And at this point, I'm also believing that that is not going to conflict with North Adams and South Adams. I know in our community where you often have cousins, grandparents, aunts, uncles, et cetera, that might have kids at both. If we can avoid having those at the same time, my philosophy a little bit, that would be a good thing. Sometimes maybe depending where the days fall might not always work out. And also we would not be on Memorial Day weekend by going on June 6th. I don't know, that can be kind of looked at a couple different ways, but I also like the fact that that does give us 2 days that week before Memorial Day in the event that we would get some really bad weather with our virtual learning days, synchronous, asynchronous. We typically don't have to add days to the end of the year, but if for any reason that would become necessary, that would give us a couple flex days there that would keep us within that same week and not go into the week of Memorial Day, which then would potentially obviously start running into maybe people that have made travel plans and things like that. So again, no major changes. I do want you to know I'm going to try to work with the other suits to get those as close as we can. I would open it up for suggestions though, and questions and comments if you guys have any of those. Mr. Dines is here tonight. I shared that calendar with the active leadership, and one of the changes we just made today, we realized all 3 schools, and we looked at the calendar, one of the days we were recommending for a flex waiver day next year was November 11th, which is a Wednesday, which next year is Veterans Day. So just today, we made a slight tweak on maybe what you saw, and that day will actually be November 12th, a Thursday instead of the Wednesday, so we're not having kids out on Vets Day, which may interfere with some of the programs and stuff like that different schools do. So that being said.
Can you mention first day of school date? I don't think you said that.
So,
and I've had some parents ask me that.
12th, does that sound right?
Yep. That's right.
Is
yeah,
that?
So that would, so we would have, maybe Wednesday, yes, August 12th. So Monday, Tuesday, the 10th and 11th. Staff work days, and again, I would comment, maybe I want to work with Mrs. McCall, Mrs. Ish, and the active leadership just a bit to determine. I would say right now, we've got the 3 flex days in November, February, and April. We're pretty close to lined up with North Adams and South Adams. Right now, I know South Adams, again, is tentatively maybe planning on using that Tuesday as a flex waiver day, so we may come back, have some discussion, how do we best want to utilize those days, but I don't think that'll affect the first day of school being Wednesday the 12th.
Is that likely to be North and South Adams start date as well?
Yes, that is.
Okay.
So this year, and it was a little bit with what we had scheduled, you may recall, our first student day was technically a flex waiver day, it was a Wednesday. Originally, when I had started working on this, I just kind of transitioned that over. Working with the other schools, I think they're both starting on the 12th, and again, we'll get that confirmed for sure between now and the December meeting. But unless I've missed something or we miscommunicated, I think all 3 schools will start on the 12th.
And is everyone doing that 2-week pretty much at Christmas on the, like, I know we can,
Yeah,
there were a couple
good question
questions
on
about
that.
that.
So, no, right now, and again, I don't want to necessarily
Yeah,
speak, because I know the other
right.
schools are in kind of discussion of this yet. Right now, I think South Adams and also Norwell, I think are going to be on that same exact schedule. I know we don't quite have the transition with the Wells County schools as we do here. Bluffton and North Adams are both, at least what I have seen, kind of considering a split week, maybe going Monday, Tuesday, and then not coming back till the 5th or 6th. Again, advantages, disadvantages of that. And I think as we get to next year, when Christmas, ends up falling, later, how do we want to tweak that? I think that'll be something to debate, and people's opinions going forward on that. Personally, I like it when you have the 2 weeks and you just have it Monday through Friday, Monday through Friday, it just feels nice and clean, just kind of starting, stopping. But that is not a real consistent among the Adams Wells schools right now.
And I know I've asked this question before, like the discrepancy on days, like first semester as opposed to second.
Yeah.
Do teachers have, I mean, I don't,
So the concern, and I would let the ladies here pop in anything they would want to, don't really think it's any concern for elementary. Very, very, very minimal concern, if any, for middle school. High school, where you run into it, is on your semester classes. So a year-long class, a chemistry class, a calculus class, US history, it's probably no concern either. We do have some semester courses, and this is a little bit worse than you would like. And we're actually showing 8694, and I would maybe ask, I was actually thinking that was 8496. You said that doesn't automatic count when you're updating those? Okay. I would want to recount those, because actually she's got something when she puts those dates in, it's supposed to count those. I was actually thinking it was 8496. So even a little worse maybe than it was showing, that we could maybe recount those. I think what ends up happening second semester, we have so many like I-learn testing days. You have your AP testing going on. You have just more likelihood of 2 and 3 hour delays that shorten your days anyway. So what feels like that number of days probably isn't quite as bad as it sounds, but it is something to take into consideration. If, let's just say, we get hit with a snowstorm in November and we have to miss a week of school, then you could really be in some trouble. We would always have the option of extending the semester after Christmas break, and that's something that we have done in the past. It's just not ideal. It's just kind of clean to get it ended at Christmas, restart second semester. But if we ever got in a bind like that, where we just really felt like that was too much, we would have the ability to extend that. But that certainly is something we're looking at. Just kind of when, depending on the day school starts, kind of depends how that plays out. Mrs. Ish, did you have anything to add to that, or if I kind of adequately
Yeah, that was
described
pretty
it?
much our discussion.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Aaron. The seat fits you very
If I
well.
find out from the other suits that there's any little tweaks to that, again, I don't think anything major would be, it just might be on the date of a flex day or something like that. I'll communicate that with you guys prior to the December meeting. But I know the other superintendents have both expressed interest, and I, again, don't know exactly what's transpired recently. I know years ago, whatever years ago means, whether that's 10 or 20 or 40, I don't know, felt like we tried to kind of get that consistent calendar in place, and there's just various things that affect that. But hopefully that's something we can continue to work at going forward. I think it's the benefit of the kids in all 3 districts to as close as we can be on that. So we'll try to continue to do that.
okay, thank you. All right. Is there anything else from the board? Okay. I just want to thank all of our guests tonight. It's nice to have some extra people here tonight with us. We appreciate it and appreciate the presentation as well. All right, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and our next meeting is Tuesday, December 9th, and I believe we'll be right here at 7 o'clock.